The fog rolled thick through Baker Street as I made my way to my old lodgings at 221B. 3 years had passed since I last visited this familiar door. 3 years since Holmes had vanished at Reichenbach Falls. Yet here I was, summoned by a mysterious note bearing his unmistakable handwriting. My dear Watson, come at once, if convenient. If inconvenient, come all the same. S.H. Mrs. Hudson answered my knock, her face pale as if she'd seen a ghost. Without a word, she led me upstairs to the sitting room. There, silhouetted against the window, stood a tall, lean figure I never thought I'd see again. "Holmes," I exclaimed. "But how? We all thought you dead." He turned, that familiar sharp profile emerging from the shadows. "My dear Watson," he said with a slight smile, "reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. But now I need your help with a most peculiar case." Holmes gestured for me to take my old chair by the fire. While I was away, I traced Moriarty's remaining criminal network across Europe. But one mystery remained unsolved, a series of art thefts from private collections. The stolen paintings all shared one strange detail. Each depicted a black cat. He handed me several newspaper clippings. 7 paintings taken in the past month alone. No signs of forced entry. No witnesses. Only this was left behind at each scene. Holmes produced a small card bearing a simple ink drawing of a cat's paw. Last night, another painting was stolen from Lord Ashworth's estate. But this time, something changed. The thief left behind more than just their calling card. They left a body. "Murder?" I asked, leaning forward. Indeed. Lord Ashworth's security guard was found dead in the gallery. But here's the curious part. The man died of fright. His face was frozen in a mask of pure terror. Holmes paced the room, his nervous energy palpable. The local police are baffled. Inspector Lestrade specifically requested my return to London to assist with the case. "What's your theory?" I asked. "I have several, but require more data. We leave for the Ashworth estate in an hour. Pack your revolver. Watson, I suspect we'll need it before this night is through." The Ashworth estate sat on the outskirts of London, a sprawling Victorian mansion surrounded by carefully manicured gardens. Inspector Lestrade met us at the front steps, looking haggard. "Welcome back, Mr. Holmes," he said, "though I wish it were under better circumstances. The body's been removed, but we've left the scene untouched otherwise." The gallery was a long room lined with paintings. Empty spaces on the walls marked where artwork had hung. The stolen painting's frame lay shattered on the floor, surrounded by a chalk outline where the guard's body had been found. Holmes moved through the space like a bloodhound on a scent, examining every detail. He paused at the broken frame, using his magnifying glass to study the edges. "Interesting," he murmured. "Watson, what do you make of these marks?" I knelt beside him. Tiny scratches marred the frame's gilded surface. "They almost look like claw marks." "Precisely. And observe the glass broken from the inside out, not the outside in." Holmes stood, his eyes scanning the room. "Lestrade, I need to speak with Lord Ashworth." We found the nobleman in his study, a distinguished man in his 60s. His hands shook slightly as he poured himself a brandy. "I've already told the police everything," he said. "I was asleep when it happened. My guard, Phillips, he was a good man. Served in the army. Not the type to die of fright." "Tell me about the painting that was taken," Holmes pressed. An old family piece. The Black Cat's Revenge by Giuseppe Salvatore. Been in the family for generations. Horrible thing really showed a massive black cat with glowing eyes standing over a dead nobleman. Family legend claims it was cursed. Holmes's eyes lit up. Cursed? Do tell. Salvatore painted it in 1666 for my ancestor, who commissioned it to commemorate killing a black cat he believed was a witch's familiar. Story goes the witch cursed the painting, saying it would bring death to any who possessed it. Nonsense, of course. Of course, Holmes murmured, but I could tell his mind was racing. One final question. Do you own a cat, Lord Ashworth? No. I'm terribly allergic. Why? Holmes pointed to several black hairs caught in the carpet. Curious, then, that these are here. We left the estate as darkness fell. Holmes was unusually quiet during our cab ride back to Baker Street. You have a theory? I finally asked. 7 theories at present. But first, we need to visit the other victims of our artistic cat burglar. I suspect each will have a similar story about their stolen paintings. Over the next day, we interviewed 6 other robbery victims. Each painting had depicted a black cat. Each had a dark history. And at each scene, we found the same black cat hairs. The pattern is clear, Holmes announced that evening as we sat by the fire. Our thief is collecting these paintings for a purpose. The question is, why? Before I could respond, Mrs. Hudson burst in. Mr. Holmes, another note delivered for you. The message was simple, midnight. British Museum. Come alone if you want to solve the mystery. The cat. A trap, I said. Undoubtedly, Holmes replied with a grim smile. And we shall oblige them, but not quite as alone as they expect. At midnight, Holmes entered the British Museum's main hall while I waited hidden behind a column, revolver ready. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then we heard it, a soft padding of feet and a low, inhuman growl. Through the moonlight, streaming through the windows, a massive black cat emerged. But this was no ordinary feline. It was the size of a tiger, with eyes that glowed an unnatural green. Fascinating, Holmes said calmly. I suspected something like this, though seeing it is quite another matter. The cat spoke in a woman's voice. Sherlock Holmes, I wondered if you'd figure it out. A witch's familiar, gathering cursed paintings of your kind. But why kill the guard? He saw my true form. And the paintings? Each one holds a piece of my mistress's soul, trapped by the artists who feared her power. Once I gather them all, she will return. I'm afraid I can't allow that, Holmes said. He pulled something from his coat. It looked like a charm or medallion. The cat hissed. Where did you get that? I didn't spend all my time chasing Moriarty's network. I learned a few other useful things as well. Holmes held up the medallion. It began to glow with a pale blue light. The creature howled, a terrible, piercing sound. Its form seemed to waver, like smoke in wind. Then, with a final screech, it vanished. Where it had stood lay a pile of black fur and a small silver locket. Holmes picked up the locket. The witch's anchor to our world. Without it, neither she nor her familiar can return. Holmes, I said, emerging from my hiding place, what just happened? That was something beyond our normal experience. Yes. He pocketed the locket. There are more things in heaven and earth, Watson. though I prefer to keep such cases out of my public record. Who would believe them? The stolen paintings were recovered the next day, found stacked in a hidden room of the museum. Lord Ashworth's guard was officially declared to have died of heart failure. And if anyone noticed, a large black cat was no longer stalking London's galleries. They didn't mention it. That evening, as Holmes and I sat by the fire at Baker Street, I had to ask, "Will you ever tell me where you really were these past 3 years?" He smiled mysteriously and lit his pipe. "My dear Watson, some mysteries are better left unsolved."